I'm Maddie,
And I'm Ellery.
and we did our project on the medieval warm period.
This climate fluctuation occurred from about 1900 to 1300 AD.
One of the factors that caused the medieval warm period was an increase in solar activity. This is caused by the solar cycle, which is a periodic 11-year change in the sun's activity, causing the sun's north and south pole to trade places. The solar cycle affects activity on the surface of the sun, such as sunspots, which are caused by the sun's magnetic fields. As the magnetic fields change, so does the amount of activity on the sun's surface. Giant eruptions on the sun, such as solar flares and coronal mass ejections, increase during the solar cycle, sending powerful bursts of energy and material into space, causing Earth's climate to change. This impacts the photosphere.
Another factor that caused climate change in the medieval warming period is a decrease in volcanic activity. When there's a decrease in volcanic activity, this means there are less eruptions of lava and ash when magma rises through cracks or weak spots in Earth's crusts. This also means there is less plate movement, as plate movement forces molten rocks to explode into the air, causing volcanic eruption. When the plate tectonics don't move, this means the mantle convection is lower, causing the outer core of Earth to solidify, which causes Earth's climate to change. The sphere that is impacted by this factor is the lithosphere.
Another factor that caused the medieval warming period was changes to ocean circulation. Changes to ocean currents can be caused by wind, density, differences in water masses caused by temperature and salinity variations, gravity, and earthquakes or storms. Ocean currents carry heat around the Earth. The direction of these currents can shift so that different areas become warmer or cooler. Oceans store a large amount of heat, so small changes in ocean currents can have a large effect on coastal and global climate. This happens in the hydrosphere. One similarity that caused both the medieval warming period and climate change today was that just like how a decrease in volcanic activity caused the medieval warm period, volcanic activity is also a factor in climate change today. The gases and dust particles thrown into the air during volcanic eruptions influence the climate. Most of these particles cool the planet by shading incoming solar radiation. This cooling effect can last for months to years depending on the eruption. Volcanoes have also contributed to global warming when extreme amounts of volcanism occurred, releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
Just like ocean circulation affected the medieval warming period, it still continues to change our climate today. Today, our ocean circulation has slowed by about 15%, causing colder winters and hotter summers in Europe, changes in rainfall patterns in the tropics, and warmer water building up along the U.S. coast that can fuel sea level rise and destructive storms. The ocean's currents act like a giant conveyor belt that transport heat from the tropics to the higher latitudes. As warm water from the tropics flow towards the poles in wind-driven currents near the surface, it cools, becoming denser and heavier, and eventually sinks. It then begins to flow back towards the equator in a slow journey deep in the ocean. One difference between the medieval warm period and climate change today was that although solar activity was a factor in the medieval warm period, the sun has not contributed to recent climate change. This is because the warming we've seen over the last few decades is too rapid to be linked to changes in Earth's orbit and too large to be caused by solar activity.
Short-term impacts on organisms during the medieval warm period were first alpine tree lines rose, meaning more plants for organisms to eat so they could survive longer. Another impact was favorable open ocean conditions for the navigation and fishing, so it caused humans to have a food source so they could survive. Another impact was organisms thrived when the first Greenlanders brought grain seed, barley, oats, rye, horses, cattle, pigs, sheep, and goats, helping the people as they could use animals and plants for food and labor. Long-term impacts on organisms during the medieval warm period were first, grain crops flourished, meaning organisms could reproduce more and live on longer. Another impact was many new cities were formed, causing the population of humans to steadily increase. All these impacts, long-term, caused human population to more than double.
If the medieval warm period existed today.
The medieval warming period occurred when there were humans and it wasn't a drastic change in temperature, causing the outcome to be positive. Meaning, if the medieval warming period existed today, the result would be just like it was in the past. The Vikings took advantage of the climatic amelioration that the medieval warming period gave them to colonize southern Greenland, when the climate was milder for open ocean conditions for the navigation and fishing. In this case, it would help the people today to learn to navigate and catch food for themselves.
The first balanced chemical reaction that relates to the medieval warm period was photosynthesis. This is when sunlight energy is converted into chemical energy by using chlorophyll, which is what gives plants their green color. Chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light and uses the energy to convert water and CO2 into glucose. This is involved in the medieval warming period because during this time, many plants flourished, which means they all had to go through the photosynthesis process and they used the warmer sunlight energy to help them.
The second balanced chemical reaction that is related to the medieval warming period is cellular respiration, which is the process of oxidizing food molecules like glucose to CO2 and water. The energy released is trapped in the form of ATP for use by all the energy-consuming activities of the cell. This is involved in the medieval warming period because during this time, animals and humans flourished as new resources were available, causing all of them to go through cellular respiration.
Thanks for watching!